section, right? So this session is going to be available for you to use later on. After this session, I'm going to share the link to the video to you and other resources after the end of the session. So you shouldn't worry about that too much. So my name is Linson Abah. So I'm your host for today. What I do really revolves around data analytics, right? So I do data coaching, data consulting. The consulting aspect is to business solution. We try to see the best solution that works best for you. Whatever it is that you're trying to solve, and look at the solution that fits best. Then with regards to Power Platform, so actually Power BI is part of the Power Platform solution, right? So we have Power BI, we have Power Automate, we have, what's it called again? Virtual agents, you get right? Then you have all these things put together and they form the Power Platform. My journey so far as a data analyst, so I started in 2018 at GDM. That's where I got a hands-on experience in data analysis, right? I had to do a lot of data collection there. From there, I became a consultant and engineer at ASL. Did a lot of engineering there and consulting mission. Afterwards, I moved to Avon HMO as a data analyst again. I moved to Safe Border. So I presently work as a data analyst at Safe Border. If Safe Border has a branch in Kampala, that's Uganda, and another branch in Ibadan. In Ibadan, we do transportation, and in Kampala, we do a mix of transportation and what should you expect, right? So this session, I'm not just going to jump into Power BI desktop, right? I'm not just going to jump into it. We're going to build a foundation for the things you should know, the things you should expect, and how you should grow from here. So basically, I'm just going to give you the fundamentals that will help you build on your knowledge on Power BI. So what is business intelligence? If you don't know, the BI in Power BI means business intelligence. So when you say Power BI, you are saying Power Business Intelligence. Then from there, we'll focus on Power BI desktop. You're going to build your first report in Power BI. Then we talk about some tricks and tips that will be helpful for you. You should also keep in mind. So the resources aspect will come after the webinar, where I'll email them to you and send links to some scholarships that you can also take advantage of. So what is business intelligence? For me, business intelligence refers to technology-driven data analytic processes, right, that are used to generate actionable insights or information from data. From there, we have business intelligence processes. Okay, what are the processes used for business intelligence? The process is used for business intelligence. So if you've worked in a big organization, before, you realize that your company has a database somewhere where the data is already stored, right? So that data is definitely coming from somewhere. You get it? The data is coming from somewhere. So you have multiple data sources in your company. You have data coming from the cloud somewhere. There's another data coming from a server. There are Excel files seated everywhere that is in your company. So there's a process that was able to pull this data together, and the data is saved somewhere in the data warehouse. That data is sitting somewhere in the data warehouse, and from there, you can connect to the data using one of these tools, right? You can connect to the data to clean it, you transform the data, then you do your analysis, you do some visualization. So in this instance now, you use Power BI, right? So you can use Power BI. Use Power BI in this instance here to analyze and transform your data. Then from there, you generate your insights. All the insights, you get from your data will now be used to make important decisions. Okay, do we do this? Do we do this? Should we launch a new feature or not? Okay, our customers, do they really need this? No, they don't need it. So this is how the process starts. You start from somewhere in your data and you come to a point where you analyze it, and then business insight, then business decision. So your job as a Power BI data analyst sits right here. This is where you sit. You sit right here, okay? 2 hands and 2 legs, that seems fair. You sit right here. You connect to the data warehouse here. You get your data, you transform the data, you clean it, you do your analysis, you create dashboards, right? You analyze the result, you analyze data that comes from experiments. Then from there, you generate your insight and send it here. So you notice that your job here is done. So maybe the manager of your department will use the insights. The manager will use your insights to make decisions. But it's not all companies that have this, right? It's not all companies that have data warehouse. Some companies don't have data warehouse, especially if your company is relatively new. So you're going to have your data sitting in multiple locations. The data will be sitting in OneDrive, Google Sheet, Excel, Salesforce, CRM. In that instance, you don't have a central location for where your data has been collected, right? So generally, your data engineer sits here. Let's put DE here. Generally, your data engineer is supposed to sit here, supposed to pull this data from multiple sources and bring it down to a single database in your data warehouse for you. But most companies don't have a data warehouse. That means that as a data analyst, you will have, so you are the data analyst here, right? Okay, someone's hand is raised, just give me a minute. You are the data analyst here. You have to use Power BI to connect to all these multiple data sources. You get that? You now analyze the data, then you generate business insights. Okay, Ugokuchuku say you can't see my screen. Are we, can someone confirm if that's true? If you can see my screen, let me know if you can see my screen. Okay, so Ugokuchuku, if you can, okay, all right. So we're back. I mentioned how some companies don't have data warehouse, right? The data warehouse now is like a central location where you have all your data. It's a central location where you pull your data from multiple sources, from your database, from your customer service tool, and put it in the data warehouse. But if your company is small, you are not going to have a data warehouse. You're likely going to be working with multiple Excel files, Google Sheets, PDF files. Some of these files will be sent to you through email. So you have to look for a way to aggregate this data and analyze it, right? We'll look at how you can do that. So this is a process around business intelligence. Then you should know that this process is iterative. You can actually analyze the data, generate your insight. No decision will be made. You may be told to go back and confirm some metrics. So realize that you move in this direction, move constantly between these 2 points until you generate the needed insight, and they can use that to make some decisions about the business. And there are instances where you cannot just stand up and analyze the data, right? You have to do some form of requirement gathering. We'll talk about that when we're talking about data analysis process, all right? So we move on from here. So now we want to focus a bit on Power BI desktop. So when you say Power BI in general, people think it's just one solution. So Power BI in general is made up of multiple solutions, right? There's Power BI service and there's Power BI desktop. Power BI service is where you publish your reports. That's where your company, everyone in your company can access the reports. Power BI desktop is what you install on your laptop. where you build your report, and that's where I want to focus more. There's also Power BI Server. Power BI Server is a bit different. It's for people who don't want to host their reports in the cloud in Power BI service. So they host it locally on their own server, right? So they have more control over what they do there. But because of maintenance, the cost of setting up a server, most companies just go with Power BI service because it's a lot easier to do. So Power BI Desktop is a tool built for analysts. That's the core mind behind it. It is built for analysts. What I have right here is copied from Microsoft's page for Power BI download, right? You want to download Power BI online, you get to see it say, it combines state-of-the-art interactive visualizations with industry-leading data query, modeling built in. So you don't have to create your reports with Power BI, you publish it. So it empowers you to do some kind of critical analysis. So you don't have to, I think everything you need is seated right there in Power BI. And I know I remembered I shared a link in the email I sent earlier. If you got the email, there's a strong chance that you've installed Power BI. But I noticed that some persons had issues with installing Power BI. So what I'm going to do again is just to share the instruction I shared earlier and believe that you will see how it works, right? So if you want to install Power BI, what I recommend you do most of the time is to use the Microsoft Store. Can you see my screen? Let me just confirm.
Yep. Yes, we can.
All right, thank you. So if, for instance, you want to install Power BI desktop on your laptop, especially if, I know some persons don't have a laptop of their own, right? They are using their work laptop. So you want to use it to learn. So when you download Power BI, you want to install, to start asking for admin rights and stuff like that. So you try to avoid situations like that. What I recommend you do 100% of the time is to go to Microsoft Store on your laptop, right? You go to, it's right there on your laptop. And if you can't find it, what you have to do is to just come to the search bar here and search for Store, right? The moment you search for Store, you'll find Microsoft Store. So all you have to do is to launch Microsoft Store, and from there you can download Power BI. So I just launched Microsoft Store. So what I have to do next is just go to the search bar. You go to the search bar and search for Power BI Desktop. Power BI. You be careful so that you don't download something else, right? So when you're searching for Power BI, you have Power BI Desktop and Power BI Reports Builder. What you would want to click on is Power BI Desktop. If you click on Power BI Desktop, you have this view that I have here right now. So I already have Power BI on my system. So I think if you don't have Power BI installed yet, what you should be seeing here should be Get. Instead of Open, you should see Get. I believe that should be the word you see there. So all you have to do is to click on it, then you wait for it to install. When the installation is done, the button will change to Open. For some people, it used to be Launch. So I don't know what you're going to see, depending on maybe the version that is likely to download. If you're getting the recent version, you should see Open. But previously, it used to be Launch. So if you click on this, then you're able, the Power BI Desktop is going to launch. You get that? So if you're using a mobile, if you're using mobile internet, I won't recommend you downloading Power BI now, right? Because if you do that, you're going to be it's going to be taking a portion of your bandwidth, and your connection may be very slow and you may not hear me properly. So that's that on installing Power BI Desktop. So it's quite short. There's not too much work around it to install it directly. So if anyone is using Mac, you won't be able to install Power BI directly like this, especially if you're using iOS rather. So if your OS is iOS, you run into issues. Power BI doesn't support iOS out of the box, right? So I have no explanation for that, but we may have to do a lot of reworking and reworking before we get that to work. So I'm closing this for now. So let's go back to our slides. So components of Power BI desktop. So you've installed Power BI desktop, right? The Power BI desktop has 3 core layers: the data transformation layer, and the data modeling layer, and the reporting layer. Okay, so these are the layers that you find in Power BI. Michael, you have a question? If you are speaking, you're muted. Okay. Yeah, this session is recorded, right? The session is recorded. You'll get it after the class. So components of Power BI desktop, we have transformation layer, the data modeling layer, and the reporting layer. As a Power BI data analyst, 90% of the time, you are going to be using this tree because you're going to use the data transformation layer to get your data, the data modeling layer to model your data, and the reporting layer to build your report. You get that? Because each of these, they are fused together. It's just a step. You move from step 1. It's just as if you're moving this way. You move from step 1 to step 2. You move just 1, 2, 3. The only thing that you don't have VNS is just to publish your report, right? You're done with your report. Sometimes you don't even need to publish your report, especially if you're working in a company that does a lot of presentation in PowerPoint. Because some people don't like interactive reports. They'll tell you, oh, no, I don't want to interact with the report. I want you to create the report, put it in a slide for me and present. So sometimes you may be required to create reports. You put those reports in a slide and you do a little presentation, right, to explain your analysis, to explain the insights. Or you may have the head of the department that tells you, no, just export the report to PDF. The good thing is that even if you publish the report, you can also export your reports to PDF from Power BI service. So, but we're not focused on that today. So we move on to the next slide. So what next? The transformation layer. So the data transformation layer of Power BI is officially known as what? Power Query. So I think Excel users will be very excited here, right? Excel users will be very excited here because if you're someone who uses Excel a lot, let's say you're a master in Excel, that means you use Power Query a lot in Excel because with Power Query, you can get data from multiple sources. You can get data from SharePoint lists, from Excel, from your database. You can transform and merge the data together. And from there, you can create your analysis, right? So you extract your data, you transform your data, then you load your data into the data model. So these are the multiple sources where you can get your data from, right? So this aspect, you should just consider this aspect as what? E, which is extraction, which is what? This is a transformation layer, right? So data prep here means data preparation. You prepare your data. I've seen people describe Power Query as the kitchen, right? The kitchen where you cook your data in a Power BI. If your data is prepared poorly, your report is also going to be very poor. You're going to have issues with your report. You're going to have issues where your data is messy. How do you deal with missing values? Where you clean messy data, give it structure and order. You have rows as column, you transform your data. You do a lot of that transformation here in Power Query. Then after that, what do? This should actually be rather, ETL. So you get to hear this a lot. This is also a concept that is used in data engineering, right? Where they extract data from multiple sources, transform the data, and load the data into a database. But in this instance, we are not loading the data into a database. We are loading the data into a data model. You get that? So please, if you have any questions, you need clarification, you can just drop a chat so that let me just confirm though. If you have a question, you can maybe raise your hand or drop a chat, okay? Okay, nobody's raising a hand. That means we can continue. Great. So I'm just walking you through this. So by the time I open Power BI Desktop, you understand everything I'm saying. Then we have the data modeling layer. So the data modeling layer is kind of very important. So the queries you have written, all the extraction, the transformation you've done, you load them as queries, right? You load them as queries into Power BI. But when they show up in Power BI, they show up as tables. Somebody's not muted. So I explained that queries are loaded as tables into the data model. Then your table could either be facts or dimension, right? So I'll explain fact or dimension tables to you later on. Then what we also do in the modeling layer is we create relationship between the tables. So if you load multiple tables into your data model, you want the tables to be able to speak to each other, because if your tables are not speaking to each other, you won't be able to aggregate your data properly. You may just have tables that are just sitting in silos, and the whole point of transforming and loading the data together into a single model will be defeated, right? Then we also have primary keys. It's very important that while you're transforming your data, you're able to identify primary keys, because they are going to help you in forming the relationships. As a form relationship between these tables, what you use is the primary keys. Without the primary keys, you will not be able to create relationship. If you're not able to create relationship, your report is not going to be rich, your report is going to be misleading, and yeah, maybe they will fire you because all your analysis will be wrong and you'll be misleading the company. And you don't want that to happen. Yeah, so this is what a simple data model looks like. For instance, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the list of tables that we have, right? So, but you see that these tables are all pointing to one table, the sales table. We have product pointing to sales, we have stock pointing to sales, we have time pointing to sales. In some cases, you will find this time is written as date, but in this instance, it is written as time. And you'll find something else. We have product ID. This is the primary key right here. We have product ID. Let me see if I can shift this a bit. Yeah. So we have, this is the primary key here for the product. The primary key is a unique identifier, right? A unique identifier for each record in the product table. That means you cannot find the two product ID. You can only find one product ID. That is the primary key. If you come to the store table, you'll find, this is the primary key again, the store ID. Each store has a unique ID. This ID helps us to identify the store. There's no duplicates. It is unique. When you go to the timetable, you find that the time is the primary key, right? Each time is unique, not duplicated. But you'll now find something interesting here, right? The store ID we see here, we now find the store ID here. We have the product ID, and this time here is referenced as date. Okay, then this clearly tells us that these keys are not primary to this table, right? this key right here, they are from these tables. So because they are not primary to this table, we call them foreign keys. You get that? We now call them foreign keys because they help us identify these records. So what happens is that you realize that one primary key can appear here multiple times. So this is one, this is many. This primary, for the store, let's say for a store in Yaba, for instance, will appear multiple times here because that store will sell multiple items in a day. One product can appear multiple times here because different customers will buy that item multiple times a day. Then dates. As much as people are buying items in the morning, there are customers who come in the afternoon. There are also customers who come in the evening. You want to track all that. You realize now that while this value here is unique, you find multiple records here, right? So in essence, if you want to talk about there's something that we call the cardinality of the relationship, right? It's not very, you don't really need to go heavy into it, but it gives you an idea. One record here appears many times here. So it just tells this is the one to many kind of relationship. If you want to put it using notation, this is one to many, right? So one to many, one to many. This is the direction of the relationship. You're moving this way, you're moving in this direction. So each product here has a record here. So I'm not sure if that is clear. So I would like to ask if it's clear. If you have a question on this, you can actually ask a question on this now. So I mentioned that earlier, right? When found in another table, we can call them foreign keys. You get that? You mentioned that earlier. Okay, someone drop a chat. Okay, someone said this is clear. All right, great. Before I continue, I want to point something. You realize that while we're talking about this, for example, fact table, we're talking about products and we're talking about time. We said they all appear once, right? Which is great. And then we said you're going to find their keys here multiple times. So this type of tables have different names. I mentioned it in the previous slide. And now I want to make reference to it again. So this is the facts table. This table right here is a fact table. These ones are dimensions. So we're going to talk about the difference between facts and dimensions. I think I've already explained it to you, but now you're going to see, you're going to have a name for it and keep it in your mind. Each time you're going to be building your data model. So let's go there. So what are fact tables? So fact tables are tables that can be aggregated, right? It can be aggregated. They contain transactional data about events and activities, and they are usually thin and long. Look at it this way. For example, this table, if customers keep buying our products, that means that the length of this table will keep increasing, right? Different customers will buy our product. Then from this table as well, we can aggregate it. We can get our, what's the word for it? We can get things like sum of amounts, right? You can sum your sales amount. You can sum the quantity of items sold. We don't have that kind of information here. We can't do that on all of this table. You can, let's say you come to the office every day, then you have, that's also your facts table, right? Where you track your attendance. Great. So you see that you can aggregate it. It contains transactional data about events. Events could be customers coming to your shop to buy products. Events could be you going to Chicken Republic to buy products. So they track it, they keep track of all transactions. So you see that the size of the table is going to keep increasing, but it's going to be increasing in length. The number of columns is going to be quite few. That's why we say that the table is usually thin, right? And that's the best idea. You don't want your fact table to have a lot of columns. It's going to blow up and your data model is going to be very big and buggy. And if your data model is buggy, it means that it's going to be slow. Then we mentioned they are usually thin, right? So let's look at an instance. Dimensions are a bit different. So they give describe, this is wrong. They give description, right? They give descriptions to the records in the fact table. So for example, if we go back to this fact table again, right now you have the product ID. So you can now use the product ID to know the product that was bought, the product category, the description, the unit price, the date the product was created. So this product table will help you understand the product that was bought in the sales table. The dates table will let you know the month the product was bought, the year, the week. The store will tell you which store that product was bought from. Okay, this product was bought in our branch in Kampala. It was bought from our branch in Uganda, right? Somewhere. So without this store, product, and timetable, you will not be able to gain meaningful insight from your sales table. So these tables now that help you to describe the activities that are taking place in the sales table, we call them dimension tables, right? And they also help us to summarize our data because I can choose to get the total sales for product in a region. I can choose to get the total sales on a particular month, in a particular month. I can also choose to get the total sales for a particular category. As much as they describe our data, they also help us to summarize the data properly. So the reporting layer is just where you build your reports, right? So you build amazing reports. So things you should keep in mind when you're building your report is things like categorical variables. What are variables? Variables could be fields, columns. Okay, let me use columns since you're used to columns in Excel. So these are categorical. For example, the name of a country, the name of your product. So you realize that this is talking about dimensions, right? So we use categorical variables to plot graphs. Numerical variables could just be numbers you want to use. Then colors, we can also encode our data with colors. We can also encode our data with size. So as you build your report, the color you choose, the size you choose, you can use your data to do all that kind of modification as you build your report. So you can use a bar graph, a line charts. There are cards, for example, you see total sales. Cards will help you solve this kind of problem. You have KPIs, then you can format your visuals. You can remove interactions. We do all that in Power BI. This part is going to look very abstract. So yeah, seems like I didn't know we were going to get here quite early. We are here very early. So we are in the part where you build your first report in Power BI. So you are likely to just sit and watch, because if you want to follow along, you may miss a step. You can take notes so that you don't miss any step. So I'm going to switch from here to, I have my Power BI desktop here. All I have to do is to just start my Power BI. And great, a Power BI will come up. So if you started your Power BI desktop, this is what you're likely to see, right? You're likely to see something like this. So welcome to Power BI. You have the get data and you have this. So if you should click on get data exposes you to the interface where you can import data into Power BI. Okay, so you get to see a list of places. Excel, this is all right. If you go to files, you see Excel, CSV files, folder. If your company uses SharePoint, so there's a strong chance that your company will store some of the files on SharePoint. So you can get the data from SharePoint. Sometimes I mentioned how some people will send data to you in PDF, right? You can get your data from PDF, but it depends on the structure of the PDF. If the PDF was created in Excel, you have a strong chance of working fine with it. If it's not, you have to do the extraction, cleanup and stuff. That may be stressful. It's JSON, You can get your data as well from databases, right? SQL Server, Access, there's Azure, all forms of the SQL, there's Amazon Redshift, BigQuery, right? You can get you Snowflake, Power Platform. Power Platform now is you see Power BI data sets, data flow, you have options, Dataverse. So if you're someone who is into Power Platform, yeah, I would like to know if you can still hear me. I know my internet shook a bit just now. Just drop in the chat if you can still hear me, please. Yeah, thank you. So you can get your data from Dataverse, right? That means that if you use the common data service, you can pull data from them. Then there's data flow as well. So data flow are flows you design outside Power BI, right? Then you can also get your data from them. There's Azure. I mentioned Azure earlier. So there's Azure databases. It's a list of multiple places. This is what makes Power BI amazing, because if the company doesn't have a data warehouse, it means that you have long list of locations you can get your data from, including Azure Blob Storage. You can get your data from other online services like SharePoint List, Smartsheet. So Smartsheet is like Excel, but it's a bit different. It has other kind of features. If your company uses Zoho CRM, you think of how to get the data. You have automation, Zendex. So you have QuickBook. I think QuickBook should be for people who do accounting or finance also. You can get data from LinkedIn. You can also get data from Google Analytics, you see. So it's just a long places of you can get your data from. So you can pull this data and merge it together from multiple locations. That is if your company doesn't have a data warehouse, then you have you can write R, Python. But in the example we want to do today, we want to get our data from Excel, right? So we want to get our data from Excel. So we click on Excel, then we click on Connect. When we click on Connect, it's going to ask us for where we want to get the data from. In my own case, I've already downloaded the data on my desktop. It's called Sample Superstore. So by the end of this session, I'm also going to share this data with you in case you want to follow the video again to practicalize it. So you click on Get Data, you select Excel, you select the file. Your own location may be different, right? So you have to know where you store the data. You click on Open. So if you click on Open, now we mentioned the data transformation layer in Power BI, right? That's where we are going right now. And when I mentioned the data transformation layer, I mentioned something about data extraction, right? I mentioned how you extract data. So that is what we are doing right now. We have connected to an Excel file. These are the multiple sheets in that Excel file, right? There's orders. The data is filtered. That's why you're seeing this. There's people, and then there's returns, right? So what we want, let me open the Excel file so that you see what the data looks like. This is what the data looks like. Orders, returns, and people. Orders are the orders that people have been making, right? People have been making orders for each product. They ask, if you look at the columns, we have order date, order ID, ship mode, state, country, a long table. This is what the table looks. Returns are products that were returned back to the company, right? It's like the way you order a product from Jumia, for example, and you say, oh, no, I don't, this product was, maybe you don't want to do a situation what I ordered versus what I got. So you just want to return the order. Maybe the product was damaged, you return it. People in this instance now are like sales rep, right? Sales rep that have been attached to different regions. So now we can go back to Power BI session. So we are back to Power BI now. These are the sheets we've seen. These are the sheets we saw just now in Excel. This is our orders, very long table. These are people, these are our sales reps that have been making us proud. Then these are the returns, products that were returned, right? This product were returned. After we made the delivery, they return it back to us. So we now select, you can select multiple sheets, sheet 1, sheet 2, and sheet 3. Great, we selected the 3 sheets that we want. Now, I mentioned earlier, we're doing what? Extraction. This is what you do, extract data. Right now, we are extracting data from Excel. Up next is the next stage, which is what? Data transformation. We are going to transform that data, clean it, prepare it well in the kitchen, which I explained is what? Power Query. All you have to do next is click on transform. So I believe some of the things I've described earlier should start making sense to you now. So we are now in Power Query. This is where we cook our data. This is where we transform our data. So by default, this is what Power Query looks like. You have your home, transform, you add new column, and these are other views and tools that you can use and take advantage of. On the home page, you have the option to do what? To get data as well. Let's say this data I've gotten doesn't answer all my business questions. I can connect to another source and extract that data and bring it here. I will now have multiple sources, right? I can choose to say I want to connect to SQL Server, for example. I can now connect to this SQL Server, write a query, and bring it here. But we want to start with baby steps, so we connect to Excel first. You can enter data manually. Say, okay, just say 1, 2, 3. For example, you can call it index. You can now come here and say country status. Status, you can say active, pending, and what? Cancelled. Great. We can call this table sample table. And click on OK. You realize that we now have that table here. You've been able to create a table manually, but by clicking on enter data, you've been able to create a sample table. So these are ways you can get data in Power BI, right? So what I have to do is to come here and delete this. Let's continue from where we stopped. Please, can you guys confirm that you can hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. So let's start from returns. For example, we have 2 columns, returned and what order ID. Returned here is just telling us if this product was returned, and order ID is telling us the order, right, that was returned. So what we have to, but we have a little problem here. These values are not supposed to be here. They are supposed to be the column names, right? Return is supposed to be up here and order ID is supposed to be up here. So what you do in Power Query is just a feature called use first row as order. I believe you should be able to see it. Use first row as header. So if I should click on this, use first row as header, you realize that return is now in the column and order ID is now the column. That's great. And there's something else in Power Query you should also notice. Each step that you've taken is showing right here. If for some reason you can't find it in your own Power BI, you should make sure that query settings is checked, right? If this is not checked, you go to view. If you're on home before, you go to view, query settings. If query settings is not checked, you won't find this right here. So make sure it is checked. With this now, you get to see each step that has been applied. You can actually cancel, for example, type, promote headers. We just did that. Now you can take it out and you can go back home and apply that same step again. Use first row as header. Great. This is fine. We don't have much work to do here. We come to the people's table. We find the same issue here as well, right? We would want to resolve that. What do? We go here and click on use first row as header. This looks great. We now come to the orders table. Now, we know already that the people's table, for example, is a dimension, right? So I can just indicate this here so that we don't forget. We also know that this right is also a dimension because it's just telling us the order for which products were returned. So what I have to do next is to click on this and say dimensions. That's great. But we now have to go back to the order table. So the issue we have with the order table is that the order table is large. The order table is very large. And some information, for example, customer ID. It's great that we have customer ID, but based on the design we saw earlier, we now have customer name, customer segment, country. This information shouldn't be here. This information should be sitting on a separate table. Maybe the person that gave us this data has used some kind of Excel function to merge all the data into a single sheet. Now we are burdened with the responsibility of taking out this mistake. We have to correct the mistakes. We have to extract the data so that when we are building our model, we don't run into issues. Yeah, so someone has shared the file. As you can check the store, someone has shared a link with you there. You can get it from there. Great. So how do we resolve this problem? For example, we need a customer table. Look at this carefully. We have the order ID, great, this should be here. We have the customer ID, great, but the customer name should not be here. The customer name should be sitting in a separate table because the customer name is describing the action taken by this ID. So what we have to do is that we are creating a new table called customer table, right? That helps connect to this table. What we can do is you right click on this table and you duplicate. You can now duplicate this table. Great. We've duplicated the table. Now you want to choose columns that are relevant to you. Remember, we want only customer related columns. What do? If you go to the top here, you find choose columns. You click on choose column. Now what we have to do next is to click on this. Now we uncheck everything. The columns we want are columns that have to do with customer. We have the customer ID. Great. We have the customer name. Awesome. Then we have what again? The postal code. The postal code is what tells us where the customer lives, right? Postal code. If you have a postal code, that's what they use to maybe deliver packages to your house and all that. So that's awesome. What we have to do next is to click on OK. You now realize that all other columns have been removed, but there is one more problem. This customer ID is replicated multiple times, right? But we don't want that to happen. But the definition of a dimension table, we say that each record should be unique. To make this record unique, all you have to do is select on the customer ID, right click, and what do? You remove duplicate. You don't want duplicate, you want just unique records. When you do this, you realize that you now have unique records. That's great. All you have to do next is to come here, rename. To rename, you can click and rename. Dim. This is a dimension. That's why I'm using dim. Dim as customers. That's great. One more thing, we go back to this table. If you should go to choose column again, so I believe you can see all the columns like this. We have information about products. We have subcategory, we have segments, we have a lot of information here, right? So we want to extract the products table. You get that? Because we want to have this seated somewhere. We want to reduce the size of the orders table. So it is thin, it makes sense, but we can keep the information that describes the data away from the data that we can aggregate. Select all. So we want to select, since this is the product name, the product subcategory, product category. But if we implement this here right now, it's going to modify this. So what we do is we duplicate this again. Then we go back to that step we're doing just now. Select everything. Then you click on product, subcategory, product ID, then the segment. So as soon as we have this, that means we are great. You can click on OK. We have the product ID. Let me see. Did I miss it? Yeah, the product ID is here. You can drag and drop, or if you don't want to do that, you can actually right click on the product ID. You go to move, it says move to beginning. So it takes it to the beginning. It does the same thing. Now, in the product table, we need unique records, right? So we're going to repeat the same steps. So I right click, remove duplicates, and great, we have unique records here. I renamed this to a dimension called what? Dimension for product. You can realize how from one file we are getting more tables, right? So finally, we can come here and extract one more table, which is for the region. So all you have to do is to duplicate it, and you go to choose columns one more time. This time around, we are focused on the region. We have country, we have city, we have state, we have the postal code, and we have the region. Okay, so you can call it location, whatever you want to call it, but let's call it region this time around, right? So we click on OK. So if this is true, we want the postal code to be unique. Okay, notice that for each postal code, there's a state, there's this. So we want our postal code to be unique. We can actually move the postal code to the beginning. Then we can now remove duplicates, right? Remove duplicates. That's awesome. So someone asked earlier that what are queries, right? So this is called dimension. Let's call it region. So what we have, what we've just written right here is these are the queries that we've written. For example, we've written the query to give us just region, right? So we have only regions here. We've written a query to give us just products. We have only products here. Query for customers, a query from. So you realize that we are querying, we are asking the file for data, and the file is giving us that data. That's basically the query. So we have people, we have orders. So finally, we want to reduce the breadth of this right here, right? So what we can do is to click on choose columns. Right now, we want to remove all the irrelevant columns, especially the columns that are now sitting in the dimension table. For example, we want to take out we need a customer ID here, right? Because it's going to serve as a foreign key. When we go to data modeling, I'll explain that we don't need segment, country, state, city, we don't need postal code, yeah, region, then product category, subcategory. So all these columns should be sitting in a separate table, right? All we have to do next is to click on OK. So now you see that we've been able to reduce the size of the column. If you should look at the columns now, you realize that all this other data is no longer there. So if you reorder it, this is what we're going to have. I can drag the customer ID here next to the order ID. I can finally drag the product ID here down here. So now we have what? We have the order, we have the customer who made the order, and we have the product that the customer bought. After that, we now have information on the dates the customer bought the product, the ship date, we have the ship mode. Then we have information here that we can aggregate: sales, the quantity, the discount, the profits. You get now, we can aggregate this data now. So this is going to be our fact. This is our facts table. So fact, we have our fact table, we have our dimensions, and now we are done transforming this data. We don't have anything significant we want to change here. Everything is fine. I'd like to know if you have any question before I continue. If you have it, you can drop it in the chat. Somebody's asking, why must the postal code be unique, please? Okay, so if we go back to our customers table, right? So we have the customer, we have the customer ID, we have the customer name, but we don't have a way of linking these customers to a particular location. You get that? So we need a means to link these customers to a location. Okay, this is a customer in Lagos, this is a customer in Ghana, or this is a customer in Kampala, for example. So if you see this postal code, when we now go back, right now the postal code is a foreign key here because it is not primary to this table. When you go to the region table, this postal code now for each row, each record is unique. It has to be because this is a dimension table and this is serving as a primary key here. So in the customers table, it is foreign. It only helps us to know where our customers are from. You get that? So if it is not unique here, we're going to run into issues. We'll not be able to create relationship. And a dimension should have unique record. We mentioned that earlier, right? Each dimension should have a unique record. All right. Great. So we are done transforming our data. The next stage, we've extracted the data, we've transformed the data. The next stage is what? Loading the data. Loading the data is actually very stress-free, right? All you have to do next is click on close and apply. What close and apply does is that it closes the Power Query window and loads your data into the data model in Power BI. So before I do that, let me see, someone has a comment, let's see. Okay, it's not a question. So I can now close and apply. Now, Power BI is going to do the job of loading the data into Power BI, into the data model rather. You get that? So it will try to create a connection to the data source and load the data into the model. And great, the data has been loaded into the model. Now, all the queries we wrote earlier are now showing here as tables. So I believe I mentioned that earlier when we started. All the queries we've written are showing here as tables. You can actually view it. So this is Power BI Desktop. This is the first time we are coming here, and this is what it looks like. The fields here shows you all the data you've loaded into the model, and you also get to see all the columns under each query, right? That has produced a table here. You get that? Then the visualizations are the different type of graphs that you can use to present your data. Then these are the places you drop your measures. Then there's a filter pane where you can apply filters. So these three things are here, and this is the way they look. So if you already had Power BI installed on your laptop and it's not up to date, your visualization pane and format tabs may look a bit different. But if your Power BI is recent, you just installed it new, yours should also be looking like mine. Besides that, this is the reporting layer. I mentioned the reporting layer. This is what it looks like. But before we build our reports, there are two other layers here called the data. This is called, I'll call this a view, right? It is just a view. It's not a layer. So right here, you click on this, you can now start looking at your data, right? These are customers. We have a customer ID, we have the customer name and the postal code. People, these are the salespeople, people in the region who are pushing our sales. Products, these are all the products that we have in our inventory, right? These are the products. Right here we have the, what's it called? Region. So this region gives us cases, west, it's the south, you have the postal code for each region. Then we have returns, these are products that were returned. You see that you can actually view your data here. You can do whatever you want to do. You can filter as well, filter the sales for a particular product. Oh, they brought this product only once. So we're not selling that product that much. Then you can also see unique records, right? Down here, you get to see fact tables, you see the number of rows, you get to see the column we have selected, and you get to see the number of distinct values in that column. You can add new columns here. Right now, we don't have the need to add a new column because that will start going to another level. So that's that. You can change your data type. What do you want it to look like? Great. Another view we have again is a modeling layer, modeling view rather. So you can minimize this, and if you click on fit zoom here, you get to see what your data model looks like. So Power BI has been able to look at the data I have, right, and create a model for me. So it's telling me, this is what Power BI is telling me. Power BI is telling me that my products table Let me shift this down a bit so that you see it. Power BI is telling me that based on what I have created, this is the fact orders. Let's see if we can zoom in a bit. Okay, we can do that with this. Can you guys confirm that you can hear me, please? Oh.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So what we have here right now, we have our fact. Let me push this up a bit. So let's do this. Yeah. So this is the facts table that we've created, right? Look at this carefully. And this is the products table. I explained this to us when we started out, right? So you get to see that there's a relationship here that has the number 1, and you see here star. That's 1 to many. So when I select this, you get to see that in the facts table, the product ID is selected, and in the product table, the product ID is selected. Now, when we're talking about primary and foreign key, this is where it makes sense now. This product was sold, and now we know that the product ID here is the foreign key. You get that, right? The same thing for the customer. We know the customer that bought a particular product. Now we can know where that customer is living. If you don't understand this model, it's going to give you issues later on. There's a way you can actually modify it to work for you. Then we have these people here, these people right here. Now these are products that were returned. So we use the order ID, we link it here. And we now see that we are now able to tell which product was returned. And it makes sense. So this is what our data model looks like. But the other part of the data model is where you can start doing some calculation, you create your measures. So that's DAX, and it's a bit advanced, small. So all we have to do now is you can click on manage relationship, for example, and now you can see the relationship between your models. On manage relationships, if I should select this relationship, for example, and click on edit, I get to see that we're using the postal code here and the postal code here to create a relationship. So I think that should make sense to you now. The postal code is primary to the region, but we're using it to link it to the customer. Now it is a foreign key here. And look at the relationship here. The relationship is saying many to 1. Why is it many to 1? It is many to 1 here because for many customers can be living in the same location. For example, right? Many customers can be living in Los Angeles. Many customers can be living in San Francisco. You get it now. So based on that, this is a many to 1 kind of relationship. Let me close this. If we should come here and click on edit again, we have a many to 1 relationship again. This is region, and then we have this mapped to this as well. So for each postal code, there are many, the region is much, right? Repeated multiple times. So this is also a many to 1 kind of relationship. This is what you're likely to find most of the time. We have our customers that are buying products, and we have our customer table. You get it. So it makes sense. And it's repeated. The same thing is, you have the same thing here for the orders and products. So you have one product here, but the product can be sold multiple times here or more, which makes sense. That's great. So the only thing that is missing from our table right now is a date table. We don't have a date table. But how about we don't create a date table until we see the need for it, right? So let's go on. So now we want to create our first report in Power BI. Usually when I want to create my first report in Power BI, these are some of the steps I take to prepare myself. Go to visualization, right? You go to format. Then what I try to do here is I try to fit it, the vertical alignment. I try to put it to the middle. You should watch this side carefully. I put it in the middle now. I can see the whole page, right? The page was just pushed to the up, but now it's in the middle. That's one. Sometimes you may want to change the page, but we are fine with this page size now, right? Would want to come to the wallpaper and add, personally, I prefer using a gray background. This way, when I'm creating my report, I can see what it looks like. You're going to see the impact of this as we start creating our reports. I'll close this and close this. So this is what it looks like now. We have to start building our report. For example, you don't actually write, you don't need to write a formula, right? Right now, what you can do, you can go to your facts table, for example. We have sales. We can drop our sales here. The moment we drop our sales here, it's showing up as a table, giving us the total amount of sales. This is not very descriptive. What we can do is to use a card. Great. So this card is giving us our total sales. You can shift this down a bit to keep some space. What about the quantity of product? You should be careful. All you can do is to confirm that this is giving you some. You can come here, you now see the field. You see the field you've placed here, you go to this, gives you some. Now you can change this to average. You see the value has changed. You can check the minimum sales. You can go to the maximum and you can count, you can do standard deviation. You can do distinct count. Distinct count means that a value will not, the record will not be calculated multiple times, it will be counted only once, but count counts everything, right? That's for people who may have questions in regards to that. So for now, we want to see total sales. That's fine. What about the total quantity? So we have the total quantity here. We want it to show as a card. Remember, each time you want to summarize your data, you're better off using the card, right? So you click on the card visual. We come here and we do this. We have the quantity, which is fine. For example, I may want to rename this to total sales. So I can just come here, click on this. You can click on this. It tells you to rename the visual, or you can double click on it and you have total sales. So now you see that total sales is showing here. You can do the same thing for quantity. Total quantity. Great. How about total profits? You can do total profits. There's something I will show you. Don't trust the value you're seeing here, right? You should always validate your value. We'll come back to this later. So we have our profits. Well, we're going to validate this data later. Why I'm saying we will validate this data is because if you go back to the data, that's why it's good you spend some time with the data, right? Let's go to the column that has profits. When we go to the column that has profits, you realize that we have some negative values. This negative values now means that the company suffered some form of loss, right? But because we are summing the values in this column, these negative values will be subtracted from the positive values here. So we are not going to be seeing our true profit, and we're not going to be seeing our true loss, right? So you should keep that in mind. We'll come back to this later on. So we have this. There are other things you can do, for example. You can choose to say you want to see the total sales by segment, right? So you have the segment, just click on segment. The segment is showing here. All you can do is just come back and click on total sales. Now we have our total sales right here. Total sales right here. So you may not want to show it this way as a table. You may want to use a horizontal bar graph, right? You click on this and it changes. Do you see that? Now we have a little bar graph here. Now, are you seeing the advantage? I believe you should be able to see the advantage of the background I added, right? Because the page was white. If the page is white and my visual is also white, my visuals will stand out. So that's when I was telling you about tips and tricks, right? These are some of the tricks you can use. If you just start, give your page a background, use a very light color, a color that will not distract your visuals, a color that will just stay there in the background and not disturb you. So now we have this, but there's a little problem. These values are not showing, right? We don't know, we can only guess and assume the values. Okay, someone has a question for the first time in a long while. Let me check before I continue. Exactly, so that's the word for it. So someone says the word, the background gives contrast. So contrast is like a big word. If contrast is confusing you, just understand that it helps your visuals to stand out so you don't run into issues. So and people won't be struggling to understand your visual. What we can do here is we can go to format. Remember, we want to format this visual. You go to the format pane, then there's data label. Data labels are just, they help to label your categorical variables, right? They add description to it, remember, because I have to over before I see the value here. But if I should turn on data label, now I can see the value. So if I can see the value here, it means that the value here now is redundant, right? So your graphs have axes. What you have, the idea of graphs, you know, before remains the same. The horizontal line right here is your x-axis, and the vertical line is your y-axis. So if you should go to format, you find the same thing here. On the x-axis, we can choose to turn it off, right? You can just say, can you turn it off? You turn it off. Now we have the values here. You can also increase the font size. If you don't know where to find it, what you can just search is just search for font. Search for font, and you see for y-axis, we're not doing that. For x-axis, we're not doing that. For the data label, we can increase the font to maybe, let me see, to maybe, let's say 12, right? For the data label, or 14. We're in the y-axis here. Let me do 12. X-axis, we've turned off x-axis. We don't need that data label. You can also use 12. Where are you? Data label 12. Then, yeah, so this looks fine. You have your heading. You can actually turn off this label here that says segments. When do you turn that off? You go to the y-axis. The y-axis has a title. You turn it off. You no longer see that. So we have our sales by segment. If you want to turn off for the x-axis, you can turn it off. But let's leave this as this for now. Now we have this. What if we want to see the trend of sales over a period of time? The trend of sales over a period of time. You can start somewhere. We can start with, let's go here. We have the order date, right? We have the order date. This is what the order date looks like. So if for some reason your order date is not showing as order date, when your laptop is likely to show difference, is because you have turned off something. Where you can turn it off is you can turn it on is you can come to this place, go to set options. In options, then you now have report settings. You have a list of settings for reports. You have allow filters. Let's see if we can find it here. Let's see, query reduction. Let's see where you are, regional, to detect column types. You have auto time intelligence. If your auto time intelligence is not checked, you may not get the best out of your dates. That means you may have to sit down and start creating your own custom column. If I should check this and click on OK, realize that something is going to change. My order date is showing differently now. I can now see date hierarchy. I can now see year, quarter, month, and day. So if you're in a situation where you don't find this, this is how you correct that. So we're going to click on this visual, and I can now come here and see date hierarchy, for example. Now I see the year, the quarter, the month, and the date, right? So let's say we want to visualize it by our total sales. So this is what it looks like. And we want to use a line chart. We want to see a trend. Because you have a data hierarchy on, this is what the visual is going to look like. Let me expand this so you see it. This is what the visual is going to look like. The visual will look like this. So you get to see the year, right? Year from 2014 down to 2017. You get to see your sales going up, which is great and awesome. So what data hierarchy gives you is it gives you the ability to drill down and drill through. So in Power BI, there's something called drill down. Look at this well. This is drill down. This is, you drill to the next level. Next level in this instance, you see what it looks like. Remember, we have date, quarter, month, and day. Then you have this who says you should do what? Expand. So if we should click right now, if I click on this, nothing is happening, right? As I'm clicking on this visual, nothing is happening. But if I should select drill and I should click on 2015, realize that we have gone down to the next level. We are now in the quarter of 2015 because I clicked on 2015. Now we've gone down to the quarter level. If I should click on April 2015 again, we have gone down to the next level. Do you see this now? We are in April. Then we now go to the month level, right? If I should click on this one more time, you see that we have gone down to the day level. So we've been able to progress gradually. There are instances where you may want to use this in your report, right? And remember, this is for the year we selected, right? So you get this for 2015. You can't see for the other years, because if you want to see for the other years, you have to start going back up. It says drill up. You go back up, and you're back up. That's the difference. Then there is go to the next level. Go to the next level is a bit different. You don't have to. So we are in the go to the next level, right? If I should click on this, you see it goes to the quarter. It doesn't show you the year. It just shows you the quarter at each level. Now, let's say you want to know which quarter you have more sales. This is where it becomes useful. If you click on this one more time, you now go to the month level. And when you click on it one more time, you go what? To the day level, each day of the month. And it makes sense. You get to see that. If you want to go back, you have to click on this and go back up. But then there's the option to expand. You can expand. We just expanded to each quarter in each year. You can expand one more time. You get to see, now you're seeing the year, the quarter, and the month. 2014, quarter 1, March. If you should click on this one more time, you have gone down to the day level. So you see, this is not very readable. You may want to do maybe like a rolling average to make this more readable. So I'm going to rush this now since we are almost out of time. So what we're going to do here is that we're going to use the drill through, but we're going to use it differently, right? What we're going to do is that we're going to go back up, take out the month, the quarter, and the day, and then we expand this. When we expand this, we can now see our trend of sales month over month, right? For each year. This is, you see, sales by year and month. So you get to see your trend of sales as you move through the year, which is fine. We're going to leave this as this. Then there's something else in Power BI called question and answer, right? Like a natural language processing, like kind of machine learning. So if I should click on my screen 2 times, it's going to come up. It said prepare, say ask a question. So what you see right now is that I have the option to ask a question. It has some suggestions for me, count of states. So if you don't want to count your states, you can just come here and do, okay, I want count of states. It's telling me that there are 49 states. You see, there was no need for you to write anything. It showed you count of states. So let's say I want this as a visual. All you have to do is to click here, and this one becomes a card. I can select it and drop it here, and now have a count of states. I can also come here again and let's do something more advanced. For example, when we started, I showed you how the profit column contains loss, right? How about we find out our loss? How about we find out about our total loss? So what I have to do now is to come here. I will say sum, follow carefully. For people who know how to write SQL, this is an advantage for you. All you have to write here is just write in English, right? Sum of, remember, we want to sum profit. Sum of profit. Sum of profit. Remember, we are saying for loss, it is negative. If a value is negative, it means that that value is less than 0. So we say where profit. Remember, in that instance, our profit is less than what? Is less than 0. So say where profit is less than 0. So you click on this. So it's giving us a value, so we can say 0. 0 now should be a value. This is not sum of profit is 0. No. Where profit. This should work fine. Where profit is less than 0. Oh, this is then. I made a mistake. This should be done, not then. Where profit is So I'll just go back some few steps, less than 0. Great, so this is our loss. Do you see it now? But when we did the normal sum, we don't get the value here. Do you get it? So there was no way for us to interact. So now you can just ask in English, give me the sum of profit, where the profit is less than 0. Now we have our loss. You can click on this to turn this into a standard visual. You click on this, it becomes a card. Isn't this amazing? There was no need for you to write any formula. There was no need for you to, we can take out this count of states for now. So we can bring this here and say sum of profits less than 0. So we now have to go back to this profit now. We want to get our real profit, right? That means this profit is not correct. What we have to do next is come here and say, give us sum of profit. For this instance, remember, we want where the profit is greater than 0. We don't just want the sum of profit. You can see that this sum of profit is giving us this value. We want where it is greater than 0. Where profit is greater than 0. This is it. This is our real profit. So this is loss, this is profit, right? You saw the product at a loss, and this is profit. So you can now subtract these two. When you subtract these two, you now get this value. So I'm taking this out for now. I'm turning this into a card, and I'm taking it back up. See, there was no need for you to do anything. All you had to do was just write some words in English, boom, you are here, which is great. This is awesome. And one more thing, you can get your, okay, how about we do let's write something more complex, because this is looking like something that is easy, right? How about we do some of, let's see, subcategory. Let's get the sum of sales by category. You can actually use this also. You can say, give me sum of sales by category. Remember, category is in the product table, right? Just select this. It's going to create a visual. Do you see this now? Sum of sales by category. So there was no need for you to start doing some kind of drag and drop. All you needed to do was add some English and boom, you have this here. So you can change this into a visual. Do you see that? You come here, you can drop this here as well. Isn't that amazing? So one more thing, what you can do again is to, you can copy format. You know, we formatted this visual, right? You can go up here. Let me expand this so you see it. It's called Format Painter, right? You can click on this visual, copy this formatting, and apply it to this visual. Now we can see the values for this visual. There was no need for us to edit this over and over and over again, right? So finally, we can also do some, let's see, we want to do the same thing for quantity. So I'll just bring this down here and take out the sales and add the quantity. So we have some quantity. So we can do some more advanced calculation right now because we don't have the time. You may want to, so you can also add filters, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust these visuals a bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to reduce this a bit. Yep. So at least our report should have a title. Yep, so we can take this down. Okay, this is fine here. You can actually reduce the size of this. If you feel this is too big, all you can do, you can come here, go to call out value, saying 45, you can reduce it to 30, right? Reduce it to 30, you see it's a lot smaller. Sorry about this. Yeah, it's a lot smaller. You can minimize this. You can see you can actually reduce the size. So you can select multiple visuals at the same time. Come back here and select 30, which is also great. All the visuals have just been adjusted at the same time. So now we have more space at the top to give our report a name. You can actually adjust this a bit. So to give your report a type 2, for example, all you have to do is to come here This is a text box. You can say super store sales report. Superstore sales reports. Take this to the end. Drag this. We want to give some space. There are many ways you can go about this, really. You don't have to do it exactly like this, right? You can just increase the size. You can just give the illusion like this is a header. Great. We have our superstore sales report. Other things you can do, for example, you can add filters to your report. Filters helps you to add interaction. For example, when I select this, you realize that all this, you realize this, look at this carefully. The sales segment is coming from a different table, right? But you see that they are all interacting with each other. That is because we are able to create relationship. Without the relationship, there's no way this will be happening, right? There's no way when we select a value here, this whole report is going to be behaving this way. That is because we've done something, we've modeled our data properly. If you don't model your data properly, you run into issues. And finally, you can add things I call slicers, right? For example, there's ship mode. The ship mode, so I'm going to stop in a few minutes since we're almost running out of time. So let's say, for example, we can add filters. This way you add filters. Filters allow you to filter your data. Slicers allow you to filter your data, right? So for example, you may just want to see for first class only, same day delivery only, second class, and standard. So this is not looking nice. We can choose to change how this should happen. We want to see it as a drop down. We can format this a bit, shift up a bit, and this is great. So you realize that there was no need for us to write any kind of formula. And finally, we want to add date. Remember, I told you, you need a date table. Why? Because we have two dates here. So in the next section we're going to build on this. We're going to create a date table. We're going to do some kind of advanced stuff, drill through, tool tips, talk about bookmarks. So those are advanced stuff. They're not like basic, right? So if we start with that one today, you're going to, so you can add a filter again, but this time around, we want this to show as a date. Then we want it to show dates between. So we can shift this to the top a bit, shift it to the top a bit. So we have to create space for this. One way we can go about this is reduce the size of what we have here, which is also why it's very important that you create a wireframe for your report before you start. Otherwise, you run into situations where you want to add visuals, but there's no space to add visuals. The way I'm resizing right now, your case may be a worse situation where you have to start removing some things, creating bookmarks and all that. So let's, I believe this should be enough for now. Yeah, it's enough. Just something basic, you don't need to stress yourself. You see that? So now we can start saying, I want to see for a particular period. We can now start interacting with your report and see data for a particular period. So after you do this, it's very important that you save your report. So you can say superstore report. Very important. And save. Great. So if you're done with your report, you can choose to export to PDF, right? Export to PDF, you can export it as a template, and you can publish to Power BI service. So I know that most of you will not be able to publish to Power BI service because you've not set up your account and all that. So those are things we'll cover in the subsequent section that we're going to have. We're going to build on this, drill through, so you can rename this page to overview, for example, overview. So I'm going to stop here since we're almost out of time to answer questions and yeah, answer questions. Oh, someone is asking, how do we create filter? Okay, I believe I just answered that, right? So let me do it one more time. For example, I'll take this out. There's a slicer here. This is called a slicer. So you click on slicer, bring it to where you want to use it. For example, you put it here. So I'm selecting this. I want to use my dates, other date, for example. Remember, we'll change this later on because we need a date table so that we can also filter by ship date. We don't want to have 2 dates on our reports, right? We just want to have 1 date filter. So we can filter with this. So if you have questions, let me know. You have comments. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. I want to appreciate everyone for joining and everyone for that stayed along. So we have how many more minutes? We have 6 more minutes. So if I'm able to, I'll just get the video, edit it, make it ready. I'll put it up online. Yeah, of course. I will email the recorded session to you, right? Either the session or a link to where you can watch it.
Thank you, Linson.
Yeah, thank you. So
I appreciate it.
yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. So
All right.
there's no any other question again.
Hi, Linson.
Hi.
Thank you very much. This is Kunle from ESL Business Solution.
Secondly, welcome. It's good to see you, sir.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
Thank you so much.
Joining.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining. I appreciate it.
Hey there. Anya.
Anya, who is this? I don't know who is speaking. Thank you for joining. I appreciate.
I see many of our group members in the class, so
oh really?
All of us are still pursuing data.
That's true. That's true. That's true. It's good
I can see Olushola Ayeni very well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Right.
My guy.
It's good to have you join.
Yeah,
right.
thank you.
All right. So
all right, thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. So I'm going to send a follow-up email, and if you have any feedback or something, you can chat me up or send to me on email, okay? So I'm going to stop sharing my screen.